I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Well, it's Friday, February 21st, 2025. Fridays, we do the Healing Circle, and we're pleased to have another session of the Healing Circle today. Before we begin, I want to do a couple of things. One is thank you who are listening and ask you to tell somebody else that we're about to start a rich conversation. I call it a robust conversation. And it's a conversation about where we are as individuals, as families, as community, and as a nation. It's a conversation that talks about anxiety and stress and how we have to deal with that given the political and cultural schism that we see emerging in our country and in the world today. It's an important conversation. And tell somebody, send a note or text or email to a friend and invite them to join the conversation. We've got great guests. Again, we promise robust conversations. Before we start, I want to also remind you and ask you to support this program, help us grow our channel by subscribing and by liking each time you get a chance to join the program. And most of all, let somebody else know, invite them to subscribe as well. We're well over 1,000 subscribers. We want to get to 2,000, and we do that one subscriber at a time. If you're the next subscriber, we thank you in advance. We appreciate that, and we ask you to continue to support and join the conversation. In fact, if you want to be a part of today's conversation or future ones, drop a note in the comments section. We'll be monitoring that and bringing your voice to the conversation. And if it makes sense from time to time, actually bring you on screen into the studio as well to be in the conversation. I want to do one more thing, and that is shout out our next edition of Insight News. This program is sponsored by Insight News. That's our flagship operation at McFarlane Media. And next Monday's edition has a powerful article by a person that you met here on the Healing Circle, and that's a young lawyer, young attorney. She's an assistant attorney general for the state of Minnesota. She works with Attorney General Keith Ellison. She's powerful and she's sharp, and she also does all kinds of writing. She's a regular columnist for the newspaper, but this week we asked her to do a theater review. She went to the Guthrie Theater to enjoy Shakespeare's classic, A Midsummer Night's Dream. And all I can say is that when I got her story, her report, her analysis, her review, I was blown away. And so we put her story on the cover of the paper because she brought together all the elements of what art should do and what it should be. And even though Shakespeare wrote in an age that is long past, the principles, the lessons, the challenges, and the resolutions apply today. And she brought them forth in the context of the diversity and the strength of diversity, both in the production, but also in the messages. So if you get a chance to check out the upcoming edition of Insight News, you can get it at issuu.com/Insight News, or it's on newsstands all over Twin Cities. Get it, enjoy it. Well, with that, let me begin the program. And what we normally do, thank you, Jared, you can take that down, is begin the Healing Circle with a special process. And that process is usually led by our colleague, Dr. Bravada Garrett-Akinsanya. Not here yet. Hope she's doing well, feeling well. But Dr. Oliver Williams is here. Dr. Williams, good afternoon. And let me ask you to invite people into this moment with our protocol.
Thank you, Al. I appreciate it so much. And it's good to be here with you. And with the protocol, the thing I think about is how we have conversations, but also how we recognize. Oh, there she is.
Okay.
She's so Dr. Akinsanya, you take it.
Okay, I heard you talking about the protocol.
That's right.
Woo, I had bad connections today. The main thing we do is we join in circle, and that circle has no beginning and end. And the reason we join in circle is because it's a shared power structure. There's no top or no bottom. Everybody has equal access to the center of power, which is voice, to the center of the circle. In the circle, we honor our elders because those are the the shoulders we all stand on. And usually when we sit down, we think about how being safe means we are surrounded by our elders. And in our physical space, we often just take a breath and like I need to do right now, and look to your right, you look to your left, making sure you feel safe. You look behind yourself, making sure you feel safe. Noticing your feet on the floor and the chair that holds you, and the arms and love of the ancestors that brought us to this space, because we sit here as the embodiment of hopes and dreams of thousands of years. So we honor that in this space. And not only do we honor our elders, we honor our ancestors, because those are the shoulders that our elders stood on, and they are closest to our Creator. In this circle, because we are African people, we recognize that there's a need for order. And in that process, we use a talking stick. We're not in the same room, but it's virtual. And we pass it to one another as if we're in the space. And we are in this sacred virtual space of the circle. And as we pass the talking stick, if somebody gets the urge or the feeling or the spirit moves them, you ask for the to speak with the stick, and it shall be given to you. So in this space, we honor each other. We're grateful for our ancestors. We're grateful for the breath of life. And with that, we say welcome and ashe. I give the stick to Baba Al.
Thank you, Dr. B, that you made it here. And, let me ask you or Dr. Williams to introduce our two guests today. Let me just say that the topic we're going to be going in and out of is how do we stay strong? How do we protect our mental well-being and push forward? And we got experts with us today to share insights on the notion of resilience, of healing, and of navigating today's challenges. So would you introduce our guests and invite them to share their vision, their analysis, what's on their minds and hearts to begin the program?
Yes, I'm honored to do so. I'd like to introduce first one of our hometown folks. His name is Dr. Willie Garrett, and he's the current president of the Association of Black Psychologists. And although my name is Bravada Garrett-Akinsanya, we're not sure if we're biologically connected, but we definitely are spiritually connected. So I ask us to welcome him to be a part of this conversation. And the next person that we will invite into the circle will be Dr. Barbara Streets. And Dr. Barbara Streets, I call her my psychology daughter, because I met her over 20, almost 30 years ago, as she was an intern at the University of Texas. Since then, she's been a Fulbright fellow. She's studied in Africa, Costa Rica. She teaches at the University of, I think it's SUNY in New York. And she's just an awesome, brilliant, healing, loving Black woman. And I'm so proud to introduce them both into the circle. Can they get in?
Jared, bring them both in, please. Yeah, I can do that too. Let's see. And there we go. So you can pass the stick, Dr. B, to whoever you'd like to do.
Okay, well, I'd like to just start the conversation by saying thank you again for both of you appearing and coming to join us. And the main thing, I think we want to kind of have this conversation in three parts. In the first part, we want to acknowledge the discomfort, the disharmony, the difficulties that are being experienced in our communities because of the evolution of or shall I say devolution? As we look at it, as we look at what's happening in our political arena, as we look at what's happening in the uncertainty that people are feeling, that that piece in itself needs to be interrogated for a few minutes. Then I would like to move into having both Dr. Barbara Streets and Dr. Willie Garrett talk about the tips that they have for us to survive this era of uncertainty. And it just was a synergistic experience that I was talking to Dr. Barbara, and she was talking about tips and looking at what we need to do to survive as Black folks. And I said, oh, that sounds like Dr. Willie Garrett, who had also passed out some tips to us at the Association of Black Psychologists. So it just seemed like a wonderful love connection to bring them in this space where we've been grappling with it. Of course, my brother, Dr. Oliver Williams, always talks about how we can have peace and make that within and externally. So I'd like to just first ask both of our guests in this round table, what do you see as some of the most troublesome pictures of the circumstances that people are experiencing right now? And so I'll give the stick to Dr. Garrett.
Thank you, Bravada. Dr. Garrett-Akinsanya, I should say. I'm just very alarmed. I'm alarmed because we just went through 4 years of prolonged stress in the country, and people were already at the breaking point. They were already overloaded and at the breaking point, and we're seeing the symptoms of that now, and especially with our younger people, with the children who missed out on the developmental experiences that they should have had during COVID. And instead of being socially active as they should have been, instead they had to isolate, and they had to miss out on experiences like high school graduations and proms and playing sports and other events, And that's the group that I probably worry about the most, because we're seeing now that age group is at a college level, how they're massively struggling in college. And part of it is because, in order to take the next step in life, you have to accomplish the tasks of those early stages in life. And we have a whole core cohort group of young people who are in college now, who have not taken those developmental steps and who are struggling. And if you talk to college counselors, they'll say, oh my God, we're having record suicides, record depression, record anxiety, everything. And so that is alarming to me. It's further alarming to me that we're already in this situation, and now we have an administration that is cutting and reducing services, who is devaluing people, and not just here, but around the world. And so we're heading to a position where we're going to be on our own. Really, we're going to be on our own. There's going to be no regulation of food, no regulation of the environment, no regulation of any products that we purchase. All of that is going away. The biggest one is going to be the healthcare system, where we already see that. I just got a notice yesterday from my doctor's office that my doctor is not going to be seeing me anymore, that I will just be seeing a physician's assistant. And if the physician's assistant, finds a problem, will refer me to the doctor. That's how it will work. And, so that puts, we already have health disparities already as it is for, being African Americans, and so have other people of color. But now that is going to become worse than it's ever been. And I feel very fearful about that. And when I look at history, the last time that we were in a situation like this was during 1917, when we had World War I, at the same time the Spanish flu pandemic. And when we came out of that, we had the same sorts of things in terms of those developmental experiences and other things. We went right into the Roaring 20s, which was crazy. All the gangsters, all the violence, all the substance abuse, domestic violence, all of those things that happened. And then after that, we went into the Great Depression. And if history repeats itself, we are headed for some bad things. So I'm trying to tell people to be prepared, trying to get my own family prepared. I've got grandchildren who are too young, to really do anything, but I'm trying to get their parents prepared as well.
Yeah. That's really something.
Mm-hmm.
Let me take that conversation over to Dr. Barbara Streets. Dr. Streets, welcome again to the show. You were hearing Dr. Garrett talk about the environment that he's seeing, especially around the young people, and he even specifically talked about some college age people. And I'm wondering what your take is on just the general public as well as the students that you're teaching and engaging with on a regular basis.
Okay. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this conversation. I appreciate you and I honor you. I have about 30 points that I've put together in preparation for today's show. And if, with your permission, I'd like to go through maybe the first 10 or so of them. If this is also in preparation for a lecture I'll be giving. So the links and some of the things, of course, you won't be able to see, but I can mention some of them. Like it has already been mentioned, I am also very concerned. But the topic for today is the overall theme is resiliency. And so one of the things that
excuse me, Dr. Barbara, do you have a PowerPoint? We could share it if you have a PowerPoint or some slides.
I don't.
Okay.
They're notes, but I'll be happy to send that to you at a later date.
That's fine.
Absolutely.
If you had something you wanted to have people follow along with, we could post it as you're speaking, but that's okay. That's fine.
I want to share that part of the what I'm doing is informed by AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Andre Chalupa, as well as Dr. Cornel West and Senator Nina Turner and others. I just want to make sure you know where I'm, and also just some things that I've been thinking of for myself. So first things first, in terms of number one, remind yourself that there's nothing offensive about your existence. You're supposed to be here. You have a divine purpose. You are meant to be here, and you have a divine assignment. So please don't ever apologize, even subconsciously, about being here. Number two, grieve and ground and grieve. It is upsetting. Own the emotions, all the entire range of emotions that you're going through, and it is something to feel upset, sad, frustrated, all the emotions, but also ground yourself. And I'm gonna keep saying that over in different ways as I continue on this list. For the young folks that are listening, and I mean those who are, just if you consider yourself super young and you're into anime and video games. For the young people, I know that sometimes in terms of coping strategies, you want to escape. But I'm asking you to not escape. I'm asking you to consider what's going on in the world as a video game, a dangerous video game. But it's a video game. Now, in the real world, I want you to be thinking about creating safe spaces. Start with your room, a space in your room that's very safe. Maybe a part in your home or in the backyard, a safe place, or maybe there's a tree in the neighborhood that you go to. Create a safe place. But when you're outside, listening to news, listening to people, you're in some ways, a virtual game, and there are hidden rewards as well as challenges inside that game. Number 4, move in silence. And this is for everybody. You don't have to put everything about you on there. In this world of social media saturation, deep fakes, and constant surveillance, privacy can be your boundary, your protection, and your strategy. You don't have to put all your business out there. Use moving in silence to focus your attention on content and substance. And remember, and though this may sound cynical, I want you to know my heart is in the right place when I say this. Everybody don't want to see you win. Move inside. Number 5, understand, let's go back to that virtual thing, that image I gave you a moment ago. understand who your chess opponent really is. Sit with me, and in front of me, you and I are on the same team. Everybody that's on the panel is a part of your team. We want to see you win. There's a chessboard in front of you, in front of us. And on the other side is all this silliness and foolishness that's going on right now. What we need to do is understand your chess opponent. I want you to think, don't make any moves yet. Just sit and do what Dr. Bravada Garrett-Akinsanya did every day. Look to your right, look to your left, look up and down and behind you, and see that you're safe. Safety is not just physical, but safety is also mental, emotional, and psychological.
Yes, it is.
So I want you to be thinking about how you can be safe in many domains. So we're still on number 5. We're talking about the chess opponent. I want you to write this down, the dark triad. That includes Machiavellianism, narcissism, psychopathy, and sociopathy. If you might say, well, Dr. Barbara, I'm not into reading. I don't like to read. That's okay. There's a lot of things online that talk about that topic. The dark triad talks about these personality types. It will assist you, in my opinion, in understanding what you're seeing politically. It will help you to unpack what's going on politically, because we're all in America, we all living in the same house. We all under the roof of called America, okay? Some people want us to be not only in the garage, but under the garage. Some folks don't even want us to be not even in the garage or the backyard. They want us to go away, far, far away. You need to understand that in this family that we're in, there are systems in place that are conspiring to make you feel invisible to yourself. If you understand the dark triad concept of personality types, you can understand what you're working with, because it can feel overwhelming almost to think politically. So think about family members. Have you heard of the word narcissism? I don't want to overuse that word. I'm using it clinically because you can use it to understand a system can also be narcissistic. A system can also be sociopathic. A system can also desire to see you disappear. So again, now remember, we're still looking at the chessboard. We haven't made any moves yet. We need to unpack what we're seeing politically, and I'm suggesting you understand this thing called the dark triad concept of personality types. It will sober you to the expectations of change, because many of us are religious, Christian, and spiritual people, and we feel like we can give forgiveness and people can be redeemed. Understand that some personality types will not change. Some personality types will never experience that thing called insight. Some personality types will never say, please forgive me, I'm sorry for what I did. If you understand personality types, particularly in the dark triad, if you understand psychopathy, Ted Bundy, name some names, they will never change. They will go to their grave as they are. And in fact, our research indicates that there are structures in the brain that are different for folks in these types that they were born that way. Now, I just want to say that sober you to the expectations of change. It's not going to happen. I also want you to understand we're still in front of the chess table. If you understand, I want you to understand your opponent's level of their commitment to win. I want you to breathe that in and let it saturate your being, because you have got to match that with your commitment to not survive, but to thrive and maintain your humanity doing it. I believe you can maintain your humanity in doing it. However, I think you need to be sober about what's in front of you. Okay, we're still, should I keep going or?
Keep going. Sure. No, this is great.
Okay. Number 6, I want you to review American history. Where have you seen this before? We've seen it many times. Genocide of indigenous populations, anywhere, depending on where you are in Central, South, and North America, 95 to 99 to 100% wiped out. We've seen it before. We've seen it with the internment of Japanese Americans. We've seen it in different parts of the world. This is not new. But what I want you to do differently, don't be upset. Look at the strategy. We're talking about chess. Name the strategies that have worked in harming people. Number 8. I want you to I do want you to go to this link. It's on Democracy Now. It's on YouTube. Write that down, Democracy Now. And it aired 6 months ago. And the title is called Project 2025, co-author lays out radical agenda for next Trump term in undercover video. Let me repeat it one more time. You're going to go to YouTube. It's called Democracy Now. And the title is called Project 2025, co-author lays out radical agenda for next Trump term in undercover video. If you listen to the undercover video, boo, check this out. Everything he said he was going to do, they doing. Mm-hmm. They announced it. Now listen up. Remember I told you to move in silence? Maybe this is one of the reasons. Everybody does not have an opponent that tells you what they're going to do, but these folks told us what they was going to do, and they're going through it strategically. Also, I want you to read Project 2025. I want the whole family has to get together, and I want the whole family to read Project 2025. Okay, so we're on number 8. So we're examining the strategy. If you look at that video, you'll see that they laid it out. The goal is to create trauma. Now, I know that sounds horrible, but it's create chaos, create trauma. When I whack-a-mole you here, and your attention is here, I'm going to put you over there. Go into the wild. Very smart animals do this too. I want you to start thinking about, remember the video game. This is real time. These are real dynamics that happen in the wild that are happening right now. The strategy, keep people traumatized and demoralized. Now, I want you to take a breath. I know I said some things that's upsetting. Go ahead and breathe with me. Take a breath in. Hold it for a second. And then I want you to exhale. Take a breath in. Hold it. Now I want you to exhale. You're okay, baby. You're okay. Look to your right. Look to your left. Look up. Look down. Look behind you. Look behind you again. You know who's there? God is there. God has got your back. You okay, boo? Now let's go back to this focus. The goal, as I was saying, is chaos is the strategy. Fear is the strategy. Keep people traumatized and demoralized. I want you, for your homework assignment, I want you to journal. How can you defeat this type of opponent? That's your homework now. Journal. How do you defeat someone that's their way of operating in that type of environment where constant re-triggering is also a strategy? Doesn't this sound like psychological warfare? Doesn't this sound like COINTELPRO? Doesn't this sound like psychops? I want you to, go back and look at your history. Even if you looked at every, the executive orders, they relate to a basic need, and they're consistent. Keep people traumatized and demoralized. Continuing on. Maslow has this triangle called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Those of you who had like basic psychology classes, you're probably seeing this before. Think of a pyramid. At the very bottom, you've got your basic needs: food, water, shelter. Those called your physiological needs. And then you got safety above that. Then you got love. Then you got esteem. Then you got self-actualization. Those executive orders are designed to destroy the attainment of each of these needs. So I want you, as your family now, you're going to get together and talk about how we going to keep our triangle solid. This is our this is family. This is our foundation. All right. It's so-and-so and doesn't have a house anymore. Where can we all go? Who knows how to farm? How do we filter water? I want you to work on your physiological needs first. And I want you to be brainstorming as a family, as a community, of ways of meeting your basic needs. Then you got to go to safety. What does it mean to feel safe? But you can't think of safe just as physical safety. Remember, it's got to be psychological safety. I'm going to say a little bit more about that in the next one. Love needs. You got to make sure that people that say they love you or you love, you can't have toxic people in your life anymore. At this point, right now, we got to do some house cleaning, some home cleaning, some community cleaning.
Amen.
The stakes are so high that we cannot afford any emotional energy on nonsense and foolishness. So if we have some emotional vampires or drama in our life, we have to release those things, pray on it, release those things. Even if it's people that, you got some blood connection to, you may have to release some things so that you can stay whole and healed, etc. I can say more about that at another time, Dr. B, at one of our talks that I'm going to do for you. The next one, I want you to memorize the 14 words of the white nationalist supremacy group. What are these? Quote, "We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children." These words are the words of white supremacist nationalist movement. Remember, what are we doing? Why am I saying you need to memorize it? Because I want you to understand the game. We're still sitting on the same side, talking about strategy. We haven't made any moves yet. Understand the game. White supremacy and a technocratic oligarchy is the game. Okay, so this is my analysis. Y'all asked for my analysis. I'm telling you my analysis. And so there is some important work to do. When you understand why people are moving the way they move, you can kind of like Tai Chi, let their negative energy destroy them. I want you to be very strategic and intentional about how you and your family moves. You may not have to do a whole lot, but the most important thing, go back to what I said at the very beginning, go back to the most important thing. There's nothing offensive about your existence. You're supposed to be here. Don't be ungrounded. Don't believe the hype. If you feel your legs shaking, the sturdiness of who you are shaking, you have somewhere internalized the lie. I want you to stop right there and affirm your right to be here. Baby, you're supposed to be here, boo. You have a right to be here. And I want you to keep saying it until you believe it, until your legs stop shaking. Next one, self-regulate. That's a whole nother lecture. Next one, conserve your energy. As I mentioned before, you have to limit all toxicity. It's not just people, but it's places, things, behaviors, music, food. Because, like I said, it's the current political landscape is too energy draining for you to be dealing with that and some other nonsense. We talked about long-term planning. Get sober to the fact that a new type of self-reliance is unfolding, and this is an opportunity to learn how to farm. If you're a carpenter, please, in your free time, teach people how to build something basic like you think people might need. How does electricity work? There's YouTube videos on how things work. You need to understand some basic stuff. How do you filter water without a commercial filter? And let's go back inside. Build up your immune system. You have got to, I want you to get rid of 2 things on Instagram. I'm talking to the young people. Get rid of 2 things on Instagram, like people you follow. And I want you to start following healthy eating, immune building podcasters and content creators. And Dr. B, I'll have a list of these for you, but you have to remove some of the stuff you're following on social media, free up some of that space, and start following stuff that is going to assist you in this new reality. I need you to discover credible, impartial, and informed sources that will help you to be a better analyzer and discerner. Your superpower is discernment. Think about that from your superpower is discernment. You know what your other superpower is? The ability to say no. Practicing, everybody say with me, no.
No.
Say no.
No.
That's your superpower. No to anything that is not assisting you in building your immune system. No to any negative toxicity in your life. No to the believing that you have to be complicit and comply with foolishness or things that are not congruent with your values. Say no. If you haven't already, put up an ancestral altar in your house. People that have passed on, because part of it, when we think about the Haitian Revolution, you know what they did before they fought? They had ceremony. They had ceremony. They dug in and they called on their ancestors. We need to go back and look at some of the ways that our ancestors survived the most foolishness of foolishness. And we've got to reinvigorate some of those ancestral healing strategies and coping strategies. So put up an ancestral altar, get their pictures, laminate them, put them on an altar, put some candles, tend to it, different ways to tend to it, put some water there, make an offering, ask for ancestral guidance weekly. And we do not need to be celebrating Kwanzaa just once a year. Kwanzaa needs to be weekly now.
Yep, every day. Dr. Barbara, let me ask.
Okay, I'll pause.
Let me ask for the talking stick back, just to give us time to digest all that you're saying so powerfully and so wonderfully. And let me add something that also adds context to the information that you're sharing. I pulled up and I listened to yesterday a presentation by Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. I think he was addressing the joint legislative session of the state of Illinois. So he talked about the time that we're in, and he talked about the crises that you are describing, methods for us to manage and navigate as we speak right now. So I think I'd like to drop that in to give you a break and us a chance to form ideas and respond as well to that. Jared dropped in that it's a 3-minute video from the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. Jared, put that up if you would.
One of the largest populations of Holocaust survivors anywhere in the world. In 1978, Nazis decided that they wanted to march there. The leaders of that march knew that the images of swastika-clad young men goose-stepping down a peaceful suburban street would terrorize the local Jewish population, so many of whom had never recovered from their time in German concentration camps.
That's right.
The prospect of that march sparked a legal fight that went all the way to the Supreme Court. I do not invoke the specter of Nazis lightly, but I know the history intimately and have spent more time than probably anyone in this room with people who survived the Holocaust. Here's what I've learned. The root that tears apart your house's foundation begins as a seed of distrust and hate and blame. The seed that grew into a dictatorship in Europe a lifetime ago didn't arrive overnight. It started with everyday Germans mad about inflation and looking for someone to blame. I'm watching with a foreboding dread what is happening in our country right now. After we've discriminated against, deported, or disparaged all the immigrants and the gay and lesbian and transgender people, the developmentally disabled, the women and the minorities, once we've ostracized our neighbors and betrayed our friends, after that, when the problems we started with are still there staring us in the face, what comes next? All the atrocities of human history lurk in the answer to that question. And if we don't want to repeat history, then for God's sake, in this moment, we better be strong enough to learn from it. My oath is to the Constitution of our state and of our country. We don't have kings in America, and I don't intend to bend the knee to one. If you think I'm overreacting and sounding the alarm too soon, consider this. It took the Nazis 1 month, 3 weeks, 2 days, 8 hours, and 40 minutes to dismantle a constitutional republic. And all I'm saying is that when the 5-alarm fire starts to burn, every good person better be ready to man a post with a bucket of water if you want to stop it from raging out of control. Those Illinois Nazis did end up holding their march in 1978, just not in Skokie. After all the blowback from the case, they decided to march in Chicago instead. Only 20 of them showed up, but 2,000 people came to counter-protest. The Chicago Tribune reported that day that the rally sputtered to an unspectacular end after 10 minutes. It was Illinoisans who smothered those embers before they could burn into a flame. Tyranny requires your fear and your silence and your compliance. Democracy requires your courage. So gather your justice and humanity, Illinois, and do not let the tragic spirit of despair overcome us when our country needs us the most. Thank you.
Well, so let me, number one, I just was kind of blown away by that because it really speaks to the moment. Dr. Barbara, it speaks exactly to what you're saying at this moment as well, and to what Dr. Willie spoke about at the opening. So let me do two things. Let me ask Dr. Oliver and Dr. Willie and Dr. Bravada to respond both to that clip from the Illinois governor combined with the instruction that you have laid out, the analysis that you've made, and then I want to come back to you to continue. This is so rich, and I'm so happy that we're having this conversation. Let me pass the talking stick to Dr. Oliver first, and then you can pass it to Dr. Willie or Dr. B.
Well, one of the things that my reaction to his presentation is that he went back to history to be able to identify what it is that we need to do to win, given this circumstance. And as an African-American people, we need to do the same thing. We need to fit in. I had I had lunch with some friends yesterday, and among the things that they said was there was a young man that talked about things happening in Germany and other places, and because he wasn't around when those things occurred, he said they didn't happen. Or you had people who have misperceptions about experiences that we have as people and don't know who to identify as responsible for it. Understanding the context of history is something that's real important to be able to understand how we understand the problem, but also how we can fight the problem. And that's one of the things that I got from what the governor said. The other thing is the fact that I've been listening to Martin Luther King the last few weeks, as I did when I was a kid. And he also says, don't let anybody tell you that you don't have the right to be here, and that your opinion doesn't matter and you don't matter. And he says that we absolutely have the right to be here, and that our opinions and our experiences is something that is real important, but you have to believe that for yourself, basically. And I think the other thing is that we have to. I appreciate Dr. Street for identifying the elements that we need to consider in incorporating our work. But I think an additional thing is that we have to learn how to fight and how we fight collectively together, and to be able to figure out how to support ourselves and our community is something that's real important. And that may mean going back to what we've done in the past. And her recommendation about developing these skill sets is important. But I think also as a collective, how do we turn to each other? And how do we let go of petty arguments among each other? Because this is something that's important for our people to survive. And we have survived. So that's what I have to say. And I know I want to pass the talking stick to Dr. Willie.
Thank you, Oliver. What I was impressed with was with what Dr. Street said as well in terms of taking action and using rituals and culture to have the emotional strength that we need. But I also noticed from the governor that what he was talking about was that you didn't have to do great things. You didn't have to do big things. You just had to do what you can do and do things on a local level, and you have to show up. You know, I mean, basically, that's what he's saying. We're talking about maybe 100 people who are pushing this 2024, at least in government, you know, but we have millions of people who are in this country and who are the citizens of this country, and our voices are powerful, and that's energy, and that can bring about change, and that is what we have to do. We start with our own families, as Dr. Street was talking about. We start, you know, with caring for one another, looking out for one another, you know, having leadership in our families. We start with our ancestors and our spirituality. And those are the things that are going to give us the resilience to carry us through during this crazy time that we're into. And I'll pass it on to Dr. Garrett-Akinsanya.
Thank you, Dr. Willie. As I was listening, several things went through me, and I couldn't believe that both of you and Dr. Streets were so articulate in terms of this reaction that we should have to what's going on around us. And for me, it was especially important because I'm trying to grow a mental health center. Mm-hmm. And in the mental health center, we just had a huge discussion about how can we heal, how can we help if we're not healed? Mm-hmm. So in that space, I'm realizing that this environment is also creating a psychological assault to our way of being, to our path to wellness, the way we work together, mm-hmm. and the ability to overcome means that we have to be in high alert. We're already mm-hmm. in trauma, and you know, people in trauma are already hypervigilant. So now, even on top of that, the environment is justifying our hypervigilance. And I often refer to this Yoruba proverb that says, a person that should not go hunting when your house is on fire. And our houses are on fire. And we need to collectively make sure that none of them burns down, that we hold each other up in that space, no matter whether you don't have a hose, but maybe you got some sand to throw on it, or maybe you can bring water to the people who are doing the firefighting. We really have to learn to be collaborative. And I think that is one of our secret sauces, our secret magic powers, is when we become collective, we become fierce. And that is why they want to separate us, break us down. But we know, as people of color, we are the global majority. We make up the whole, much more than white people on this planet. And I'm not saying that white people don't have a right to be here, because we're all God's children. We don't have a right to tell one person they're better than another. We don't have the right to say, I've got water here, you don't deserve any. That's where the pathology is. And it is bred by hate. envy, greed, all the negative things you can think of, and we see it being played on every single day. So with that, I want to say, Dr. Barbara, what you brought up today and what you and Dr. Willie brought up is something I think we need to find another session even later on to revisit, because this is not going to go away. And we need to keep talking on until we get through your full list and Dr. Willie's full list and brother Dr. Oliver's ability to fight domestic violence. Because right now, our domicile, our America is the domestic violence entity. It's not intimate partner violence. It's domestic violence on a social cultural level. So with that, I give the talking stick back to Baba Al.
Well, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Barbara and Dr. Streets. If you would, sort of weave in or react to or respond to the governors in the context of your overall presentation and message, if that makes sense to you. But again, I want to thank you so much for the clarity and the incisiveness, I guess is the right word, with which you have gone into, explored, opened up both the challenge and the capacity and the right that we have to exist and to thrive despite the trauma environment that we're in.
Yes.
So, Dr. Barbara, I'm handing the talking stick back to you.
Thank you. I very much, the video is very much in alignment. I mean, I think that we are saying some of the same things in different ways. I think, one of the ways to not become overwhelmed, I'm not saying we should all be like Data on Star Trek where we kind of have no emotion, but I can certainly appreciate that frame, especially right now. And the way to get there is to be real clear about what you're looking at. Folks that have children, toddlers, you were really freaked out the first couple times they cried, but after a while, you knew what was real and what wasn't. And you also understood when to intervene and when not to. We can't be emotionally dysregulated by every single pop-up that happens. And I think it's important to, if you understand the history, it gives you a little bit of distance, not quite like Data from Star Trek, but a little bit like that, because you just understand what it is. And I think it's important to have an appreciation for the planfulness, the commitment. You have to step back and say, this is a villain story. And it is and there is a clear imagination of what the ending should be like, but we've got to remember write our own histories and remember our own strengths, and don't believe the lie. Or so I guess, yeah, I that's my main response. I do believe that the arc, my personal belief is that the arc of the universe is toward what's positive. I really do believe that. I know that there are folks that are feeling a lot of pain. I do think it's important sometimes to, if you need to take a break from all the news, then turn it off.
Let me jump in again, Dr. Barbara, and ask you something, because as you were speaking, I was struck by your instruction that we look at reality as if it's a video game. And what I love about that is that the world right now is consumed with the Super Bowl halftime show by Kendrick Lamar, which they are saying brilliantly was the presentation of existence itself in the form of a video game. And then you today say, look at where we are as a board game, video game, and you lay out this question of strategy and knowledge. So what's your take on that? Because there's a big message in the Kendrick Lamar. I mean, the world is listening and hearing something that comes out of the heartbeat of an African culture,
Mm-hmm.
Kendrick Lamar, and addressing at a small level the so-called beef between Kendrick and the other guy. I don't know his name, Drake. But I think that's a minor part of this. There's a bigger part about what it means when he says they not like us. What does that mean about the whole world? Does that come into your consideration or thought at all?
That is a great question. I have been watching that video and studying it. There are a lot of subtle, nuanced layers to that video. I think there's a lot to it. I agree. And recognize too, the love that all the creativity and the unstated messages. So in the same way, you have to analyze it, sit with it. I watched it first with music, and then I watched it a second time with it muted. And I think that's a strategy to utilize when we're looking at the political climate and the social climate around us. Turn it all the way down and just observe. What does it mean to turn it down? Turn down your anxiety so that you can focus. Tune out some of the noise that's going on in your life so you can see what's in front of you. The flag in the halftime in the performance was made up of brown people, Black people. Remember that we are a part, as Americans, we help create this beautiful country, and it is beautiful. That we are Americans, we have a right to be here, and that use your inner creativity and your inner strength to persevere. That's part of your resiliency.
Yep, that is.
I think, were you continuing, or is that maybe her voice is frozen?
No, I was just pausing for a moment because
okay.
I do agree with you that there's some parallels there.
Okay.
So I hope that answered your question a little bit. It's a lot to think about.
No, you did. You did. And I think it's a teachable moment because the world is watching, and all these videos and TikToks show there's a planetary movement at the moment to at least feel the beat and feel the message. And what does that mean for the advancement of our people, number one, our culture, number two, and humanity, number three? And just as you said, you have declared, that we should remember that we are Americans. And I say in the same breath that in as much as we are Americans, we are also human beings. And your initial statement was to affirm our right to exist as humans. And to me, the next level to that is also to acknowledge that things that are not human have a right to exist as well, right? And things that are not live as we know it, the inanimate, you can't control it, but it has a right to exist. It has a purpose, right? And so the elevation of our personhood, to me, has to include understanding the relatedness of all, and understanding a need to acknowledge the presence of the divine in everything, everywhere. And it allows us to embrace even those that have not elevated themselves to the place where they are not dangerous to themselves and to us. But then we have to have a strategic process for protecting our lives and the world.
Yes.
And if we don't protect our lives, we lose the world.
That's right.
One of the things that I've been thinking about the last few days is I've been praying to the Lord to help me not hate Donald Trump. And so we talk about forgiveness. Forgiveness is, for me, is not recognizing that you let somebody get away with all the bad things that they do. You release yourself so you're not directed in such a way that it's destructive to you.
That's right.
You know, it's people. People talk about the fact that sometimes they believe that when you feel something negative towards somebody, it's like you're stabbing yourself, waiting for the other person to fall down and die. We've got to find a way to be able to not lose our humanity, even with someone who has none.
That's right.
Yeah.
We have to, because that harms us.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to find a way to be able to move forward and to fight and stand up to things, right. Given the craziness that exists. So there's something about not losing oneself, recognizing what love is, and also getting a better understanding what forgiveness is.
Yeah.
And particularly, you know, and I guess I think about it, and there's some people who never ask for forgiveness, and who don't think that you ought to forgive them. But there's something that gives one self peace, and about learning how to not put yourself in that bag, and also learning how to still fight. What things do you need to stand up for? You stand up for yourself, you stand up for your family, you stand up for your community, you stand up for other people.
That's right.
And so those are the things that I think that we have to get a fix on. So with that,
we're a few minutes over time, but I again think this is a valuable sharing, and I would like to, Dr. B, if it's okay, ask Dr. Barbara to give us the homework assignment again. I think that will bring us back into focus, and we can leave here expecting that we will return, hopefully sooner than later, and report that we've accomplished the instructions or the assignment that you have provided as homework, Dr. Barbara. Would you do that?
Sure. There's a lot here.
Okay.
But thinking about first, I think the first thing, remind yourself that there's nothing offensive about your existence, and saying it and until you believe it. I mean, you must stand on that. You must. Because if there's any doubt in you, if there's any shaking of your knees or your hands or sweating, you don't believe it yet. And you have to believe that. And then sitting with your family, you know, I said a lot of different things in terms of thinking about this as a chess game, but I think it's really important that we learn to analyze things with a detached, some type of emotional detachment, understand it for the game, the horrible game, the traumatic game that it is, and look at the patterns. Oh, there it is again, creating trauma. Oh, there it is again, demoralization. Oh, there it is again, re-triggering. Oh, there it is again. Oh, that's an interesting psychological warfare one. Oh, I think it's important to have some level of detachment, and that can only occur when you understand your opponent. And as a family, you have to sit down and journal. Let's understand this opponent. Let's understand how this opponent moves, what their major strategies are, what their claws look like, what white supremacy really means, and then understanding that opponent. What's our best family move?
Yeah. Yes.
That's the homework. You need a journal about that.
All right.
And that's a drop the mic moment. Thank you, Dr. Barbara Streets, for showing up and teaching. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I feel honored to be your guest. I've been watching a couple of your shows in preparation for today. So I feel blessed. I appreciate you for having me here, and so thank you all very much.
And we're going to invite you back as often as you're able to come. We'd love to have you here. This has been amazing. Thank you so much. With that, thank you all, Dr. Oliver, Dr. B, Dr. streets. Thank you all so much. And thank you for those who are listening and sharing. Share this as widely as you can. Oh, let me say that we are posting these programs in the afternoon at another exciting platform that I don't know if you all are aware of it. Dr. Streets, you might or might not be. Are you familiar with Narrative at all and Nubia as social media platforms?
No, I'm not.
So check this out. We'll be posting this conversation at narrative.com. Narrative is the word narrative with a K, just like knowledge is with a K.
Okay.
So if you get a chance to go to narrative.com, and within Narrative, there's another platform, which is a social media platform called Nubia with a K as well. But what this is a space created for us, by us, to examine how we will assemble the future and the world, how we will and can and must assemble existence itself in our image and in ways that reflect our genesis position in the development of humankind. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
I think I'm saying it the right way. So check it out and and I invite people to become members of Narrative and Nubia. It's an exciting place, wonderful people, conscious, committed people, elevated conversation, fascinating information, and it's a place to share and to grow. All right, well, with that,
Thank you.
Goodbye. We'll see you next week.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right,
bye, everyone.